I don't know what it is about weddings that turn people into different versions of themselves, but my brother's wedding dragged our whole family dynamic into the spotlight, and not in a good way. My name's Jake. I'm 28, work in IT, and I've always kept to myself when it came to family stuff. Not in a dramatic, black sheep kind of way. More like the quiet middle kid who no one really notices unless something goes wrong kind of way. Growing up, I was the peacemaker, the fixer, the one who stayed out of trouble while my older brother, Evan, soaked up all the attention and my younger sister got away with everything because, well, she was the baby. I didn't mind it too much. I had my own friends, my own world, and eventually, my own apartment far away from the family drama. But there's something you need to know about Evan. He's always had this way of making everything about him. Not just in the typical firstborn, look at me kind of way. No, Evan's brand of selfish came dressed in a three-piece suit and a rehearsed grin. He was the golden child. Mom always bragged about his promotions, even when they were just lateral moves. Dad gave him the car when he graduated, while I got a handshake and a "you'll get there too, buddy." It was subtle favoritism, but favoritism all the same. And Evan knew it. He wore it like cologne, just strong enough to make sure you didn't forget. So when Evan got engaged to Alina, none of us were surprised he was planning the wedding like it was a royal affair. Destination venue, customized decor, designer tuxedos, professional drone videographers. It was like he thought this was his chance to be a celebrity for a weekend. And we all just went along with it. That's what you do in this family. Keep your head down, don't rock the boat, smile for the pictures. My girlfriend, Riley, had only met my family a few times before all this wedding chaos started. She's the kind of person who doesn't say much at first, but when she does, you listen. Smart, calm, with a sharp wit that sneaks up on you. I always admired how she could see through people so quickly, and I knew from the beginning that Evan rubbed her the wrong way. She never said it outright, but the tight-lipped smile she gave him at Christmas said more than words ever could. The first red flag came when the rehearsal dinner invitations were sent out. Or should I say, when mine wasn't. I found out about the dinner from my mom. Casual text. "See you Friday night at the restaurant." So excited. I blinked at the screen. Friday? What Friday? A quick scroll through the family group chat confirmed it. Evan had sent out a message with all the details. Except, I wasn't in the group chat anymore. I hadn't noticed. I scrolled back months, and sure enough, I must have been removed sometime in early spring. No warning, no explanation. Just gone. I brought it up with Mom, and she just gave me a shrug emoji reply. Weird. Maybe it was a glitch. A glitch. Right. I debated whether to even go. Riley saw me pacing in the kitchen that night, phone in one hand, half-eaten sandwich in the other. "It's not about the dinner," I muttered. "It's about the message." She leaned on the counter. "Which message?" "The one they're trying to send without saying anything." She didn't say anything at first. Then, "Do you want to go?" Part of me didn't. But another part, the stubborn part that I guess I got from Dad, decided I wasn't going to give Evan the satisfaction of making me feel invisible. So we went. The restaurant was one of those places with chandeliers made of wine bottles and tiny plates that cost more than my weekly grocery run. The hostess checked the reservation name and led us through a private dining room near the back. I remember thinking, okay, maybe this won't be so bad. Then I saw the table. A long, rectangular setup with name cards neatly placed in front of every seat. Parents, bridesmaids, groomsmen, even Alina's second cousin, who lived in Germany and barely spoke English, had a card. I scanned the table twice. No Jake. No Riley. Evan spotted us just as the awkward silence started to stretch. He was holding a drink and talking to Alina's dad. When our eyes met, he gave me this grin. The kind that said, "Oh, you showed up." I walked over, still trying to be polite. "Hey, looks like the hostess missed our names." He didn't miss a beat. "Didn't you get the hint?" he said, half laughing. I blinked. "What?" He took a sip of his drink. "I figured you'd be busy. Or not interested." My jaw tightened. "So there wasn't a seat for me because you just assumed?" He shrugged. "It's a tight head count, Jake. You know how these things are." Riley, standing beside me, didn't say a word. Just looked at him like she was studying a bug under glass. I looked around. There were at least 2 empty chairs at the table, probably meant for last-minute no-shows. But I knew better than to argue. This wasn't about space. This was about power. About sending a message. So I said nothing. I just nodded, turned, and Riley and I walked to one of the smaller side tables near the back of the room. No one followed us. No one even looked. We sat in silence for a bit. The waiters brought out appetizers. Toasts were made. Laughter rolled across the main table like waves. I picked at my food. Riley sipped her wine. I was halfway through a dry piece of bread when she finally leaned over and whispered, "He did that on purpose." "I know. Are you okay?" I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. She put her hand over mine. "We don't have to stay." I almost said yes. I almost stood up, threw my napkin down, and walked out. But something stopped me. Not pride exactly. Something else. Something heavier. I realized I didn't want to leave because that would be exactly what Evan wanted. For me to walk away quietly, like I always had. So we stayed. Quiet. Distant. Watching from the corner like spectators at a play. We didn't laugh at the speeches. We didn't pose for photos. We simply existed. And I could feel Evan's gaze flick toward us every so often, like he was checking to see if we were still there. He didn't like that we were. And that's when I knew something was coming. Something petty. Something cruel. I just didn't know it would involve a $3,100 surprise and a waiter who walked to our table with a bill we didn't order. The next morning, I woke up with a headache, not from the wine, but from the weight of it all. You ever have one of those nights where you replay everything in your head like a broken tape, trying to find the moment where you could have said something better? Yeah, that was me. Riley tried to talk me down gently, but even her calm presence couldn't shake the heaviness. I kept thinking about that smirk Evan gave me. So casual, like he'd just stolen my lunch in middle school and dared me to cry about it. We had a few hours before the wedding ceremony, so we grabbed a quiet breakfast at a cafe down the street from the venue. Riley stirred her coffee slowly, watching the cream swirl like storm clouds. "You sure you want to go today?" she asked, not for the first time. I nodded, but my voice came out flat. "Yeah, I need to see this through." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Then we go? But no more surprises, okay?" "Right. No more surprises." That illusion was shattered the moment we arrived at the venue. It was one of those places that looked like a castle from the outside, but functioned like a Pinterest board exploded inside. Everything was white, gold, rose petals, and strings of fairy lights. Guests were milling around, sipping champagne and commenting on the romantic aesthetic. Riley and I checked in with the front desk, got our little welcome bags, and followed the crowd into the garden where the ceremony would be held. There was a giant wooden board displaying the seating chart for the reception. Rows and rows of names written in calligraphy, organized by table numbers and flower-themed names like peony, lavender, and orchid. I scanned the list for our names. Nothing. I looked again, slower this time, line by line. Still nothing. Riley's voice was quiet but firm. "We're not on it." A cold prickle crept up my spine. I double-checked under Jake, then under Jacob, just in case. Still nothing. Then I noticed something. The very last table on the chart, table 12. No flower name. Just plain table 12. A short list of names, most of them unfamiliar, but two stood out. Jake, +1. At the very bottom, written in noticeably smaller script than the rest. I turned to Riley. "We're at the reject table." She didn't say anything, just looked at me with that expression again. The one that said, "I saw this coming." Table 12 was near the back of the reception hall, practically in a different zip code from the rest of the wedding. When we got there later that evening, I realized we were seated with the wedding videographer, a childhood neighbor Evan hadn't spoken to in years, and some girl who turned out to be the ex-girlfriend of one of the groomsmen. None of us really knew each other. We exchanged polite smiles and avoided eye contact during the speeches. But the insult wasn't just about placement. It was the fact that even here, shoved in the back corner like forgotten furniture, we were being watched. I saw Evan glance our way once during the father-daughter dance. He didn't smile. He didn't wave. He just looked at me like I was a puzzle piece that didn't fit and never would. Then came the final straw. It was time for dinner. The waiters brought out course after course, tiny plates arranged like artwork, with descriptions longer than the actual dishes. By the third course, we were starting to enjoy ourselves again, at least a little. Riley cracked a joke about how the caramelized fennel drizzle looked like a snail trail, and for a second, I laughed. That's when the waiter arrived with the bill. I blinked. "Oh, sorry. What's this?" He placed the slim, black folder on our table, just in front of Riley. "The groom requested this be delivered here." Everyone at table 12 paused. Even the videographer, who'd been half asleep, sat up straighter. I opened the folder. My stomach dropped. The total was $3,127.46. Everything was itemized. The wine, the multi-course meal, even the customized dessert tray. It was a bill for the entire rehearsal dinner. Before I could even react, Riley leaned in and calmly slid the folder back toward the waiter. She smiled. "We're just here for the show," asked the groom. The waiter, bless his heart, looked confused. Yes, of course," he stammered, backing away like he'd just walked into a family dispute, which, to be fair, he had. I was frozen, absolutely stunned. Not just at the fact that Evan had the gall to send us the bill, but that he'd done it here, at his wedding, in front of strangers. Riley leaned toward me and whispered, "That was calculated. That wasn't a mistake." I nodded slowly. He wanted to humiliate me. She narrowed her eyes. He picked the wrong girl to try it on. The rest of the reception played out in slow motion. I saw Evan arguing with the waiter briefly, then handing over his credit card like it was nothing. But the smile was gone. That cocky, confident grin had vanished. He looked rattled, like someone had turned the spotlight around and pointed it at him. But that wasn't the breaking point. Not yet. That came an hour later, during the speeches. I was nursing a drink, half listening as the best man gave a predictable, mildly inappropriate toast about Evan's college days. Then Alina stood up to say a few words. She was graceful, elegant, and clearly trying her best to hold back tears of joy. She talked about love, family, and how grateful she was for everyone who made the wedding possible. Then she paused. "And of course," she said sweetly, "a huge thank you to my new brother-in-law Jake for covering the cost of last night's dinner. We were so surprised and touched by your generosity." The room clapped. Heads turned toward our table. Riley's mouth dropped open. "What?" I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. My ears rang. My heart thudded. She thought I paid for it. That smug snake. Evan had let her believe I'd covered it. That I'd willingly dropped $3,000 as some last-minute gift. He hadn't corrected her. He hadn't said a word. Just let the applause wash over the lie like it was a warm bath. I stood up. I don't even remember deciding to do it. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. All eyes were on me now. I gave a small nod, smiled tightly, and raised my glass. "Happy to contribute," I said quietly, and sat back down. Riley was furious. "Jake!" I held up a hand. "Not here. Not now." Because that was the moment I realized something. This wasn't just about a dinner, or a table, or a wedding. This was about every birthday I got overlooked. Every time Evan forgot to invite me to something. Every time Mom made excuses for him, and Dad told me to let it go. Every time I told myself it wasn't worth the fight. This wasn't about one insult. It was about a lifetime of them. And it had to stop. But not with a scene. Not with shouting or fists or throwing wine in someone's face. No, Evan wanted drama. He wanted a reaction. He wasn't going to get it. He was going to get something worse. He was going to get silence. And then, when he least expected it, he was going to get everything he gave me back. Tenfold. Because the next morning, before they even opened their wedding gifts, I'd already started planning my response. And let's just say, by the time I was finished, Evan would wish he'd stuck me at the back of the room and left me alone. When I woke up the morning after the wedding, I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't feel much of anything, really. Just numb. Like I'd been walking through fog and finally realized there was nothing on the other side of it. Riley was still asleep beside me, her arm curled under her cheek, her breathing soft. For a moment, I watched her and felt this strange mix of guilt and gratitude. She didn't sign up for this family drama. She didn't deserve any of it. And yet, she was still here, still in my corner when it would have been easier to tap out and walk away. I quietly got out of bed and stepped onto the hotel balcony. The city was waking up below us, vendors setting up their stands, cars trickling through the quiet streets. The sun was just starting to rise, spilling soft light across the horizon. It should have been a beautiful morning. Instead, all I could think about was the look on Alina's face when she thanked me for a $3,100 gesture I never made, and the way Evan just sat there, letting her believe it. That wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a hit job with a smile. And I didn't even see it coming. Later that morning, the group chat exploded. For once, I was still in it, probably by accident. Mom posted a picture of Evan and Alina holding hands in their matching white pajamas, surrounded by gifts. "So proud of my boys," she wrote. with a string of heart emojis. And Jake, thank you again for your generosity. We raised such wonderful sons. I didn't reply. My sister, Casey, who'd mostly stayed out of things until now, finally chimed in. Wait, Jake paid for the dinner. Another cousin replied. Damn, dude, that was baller of you. More comments poured in, praise, jokes, admiration. I just stared at the screen, heart sinking further. I didn't want attention. I didn't want the credit. I just wanted the truth. But Evan had already rewritten the story. He always did. It took me a full 2 days to finally talk to my parents. I waited until we got back home, away from the wedding chaos and hotel corridors filled with fake smiles and polite applause. I called my mom first, half expecting her to dodge the conversation. She didn't. Oh, honey, she said, her voice already soft with that familiar, let's not make this a thing tone. Evan told us you offered to cover the dinner. I thought it was strange, but it was such a kind gesture. Everyone was talking about it. I never said that, I replied. He sent me the bill. Without asking. There was a pause. A long one. Well, she finally said, maybe it was a misunderstanding. You were sitting separately. No, I said, firmer now. He did it on purpose. And he didn't correct Alina when she thanked me in her speech. He let everyone believe I paid for something he planned and hosted. Another pause. Evan's been under a lot of pressure lately. I almost laughed. Of course. There it was. The golden child clause. The get out of accountability free card. He was stressed. He was busy. He didn't mean it like that. I ended the call politely, then stared at the wall for what felt like an hour. That week was the lowest I'd felt in years. Not just because of what happened, but because of what it revealed. That I had spent most of my life giving people the benefit of the doubt, only to realize they were counting on it. They relied on me to keep quiet, to let things slide, to be the one who never made a scene. And I had played my role perfectly. Until now. That night, Riley came into the living room and sat beside me. I hadn't told her everything yet, just bits and pieces, but she could see it in my face. You okay? She asked. I nodded. She waited. No, I finally admitted. I'm tired. I'm tired of being expendable to them. Riley leaned back and crossed her legs. You know what's wild? She said. You're the only one in that whole family who sees it clearly. That makes you dangerous. I frowned. Dangerous? To people like your brother? Yeah. She looked me dead in the eye. Because you've got nothing to prove. You don't need the spotlight. And that drives him crazy. So he keeps poking you, trying to get a reaction. Well, he got one, I muttered. Barely. You didn't give him what he wanted. She paused. But you can still give him what he deserves. I raised an eyebrow. What are you suggesting? She smiled. Not revenge. Not yet, anyway. I'm saying, build your life so good, they choke on it. That stuck with me. So that's what I started to do. I didn't make any big announcement. I didn't post some dramatic caption on social media or cut people off in a blaze of glory. I just got to work. The first thing I did was change jobs. I'd been stuck in the same IT position for 4 years. Decent pay, stable hours, but no growth. No challenge. I updated my resume, started applying quietly, and within 2 months, I landed a remote gig with a software company that paid almost 30% more, with real upward mobility. Then I doubled down on something I'd been putting off for years, my side hustle. I'd always been into web development, but I never took it seriously. Built a few websites for friends, freelanced here and there. But now, I treated it like a second job. I built a clean portfolio, signed up for every freelance platform that mattered, and within a few weeks, I was getting steady clients. Small projects turned into big ones. A real rhythm started to form. Riley helped, too. She had a good eye for design, so we partnered on a few gigs. She'd handle visuals, I'd handle code. We made a great team, better than I'd expected. My bank account started to grow. Slowly at first, then noticeably. I started saving more than I ever had, planning for things I never thought were in reach before. Trips, a new car, maybe even a house. But more than money, what changed was my mindset. I stopped waiting for approval. From family, from Evan, from anyone. I started showing up for myself the way I'd been showing up for other people my whole life. And the funny thing was, they noticed. Subtly at first. A cousin would comment on a new project I posted. An old friend from high school messaged me saying, "Looks like things are going well for you." Even mom started to call more often, just to check in. But Evan was quiet. Too quiet. Which meant something was brewing. I found out a few months later, Through Casey, of all people. She called me out of the blue one evening. "Hey," she said. "I need to tell you something." She sounded nervous. I stepped out onto the balcony, heart already racing. "What's going on?" "It's about Evan," she said. "You're not going to like it." She was right. Apparently, Evan had been bragging to a few of our relatives about how Jake finally got serious after the wedding. How he was the one who gave me the push I needed to man up and grow up. That I used to be stuck, but now, thanks to a little tough love, I was finally doing something with my life. He was taking credit for my success. I was stunned, speechless. "He's telling people he inspired you," Casey added. "That sending you that bill was a wake-up call." I couldn't breathe for a second. "You've got to be kidding me." I wish I was. But it gets worse. Of course it did. Apparently, Evan had recently pitched a family investment fund idea to our parents. Some real estate thing. Said it was a sure thing, and that he just needed a little help getting it off the ground. He was trying to get Dad to dip into his retirement savings. And guess who he mentioned as part of the team? Casey said. "I already knew." "Me?" "Yep," she confirmed. "Told them you were consulting on the tech side. That you'd vouch for it." I leaned against the railing. I haven't spoken to him in months. I know, but they don't. That was the final crack. The one that split everything wide open. He wasn't just lying about the past. He was using me to prop up his next scheme. And that's when I knew I couldn't just ignore it anymore. It wasn't enough to quietly succeed. It was time to set the record straight. But not with a confrontation. With a plan. One that would show the truth. Not just to my family, but to Evan himself. Because he'd spent his whole life thinking he was the main character. And he had no idea the quiet kid in the background was finally ready to take center stage. But first, I needed to know exactly what he was planning. So I reached out to someone I never thought I'd call. Alina. And the conversation we had. It changed everything. I didn't call Alina right away. I sat on the idea for 3 days, turning it over like a stone in my hand, weighing it, wondering if it would cut me or skip across the surface like I hoped. It wasn't just the awkwardness, though yeah, there was plenty of that. She'd publicly thanked me for a wedding gift I never gave and unknowingly helped paint me as some kind of charity sponsor/prodigal brother. But beneath all that, I remembered her face that night. The sincerity in her voice. The way she lit up when she talked about family and starting fresh. Alina didn't strike me as malicious. Just unaware. Evan's best trick had always been his charm, and he used it like a magician's misdirection. Smile with the left hand while the right one steals the watch off your wrist. So I finally did it. One short, polite message. "Hey Alina, this is Jake. I was hoping to talk for a few minutes, privately. Just some stuff I wanted to clear up. Not urgent. Let me know if you're open to a call." I almost didn't send it. Then I pictured Evan talking to my dad about investment opportunities, dropping my name like it was a golden ticket, and I hit send. She replied 10 minutes later. "Hi Jake. Of course. Want to chat tomorrow? I'll be free around 3. Smiley face. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe hesitation. A delay. Some passive-aggressive line about hoping this wasn't about the bill. But no, just openness. Which made me nervous in a different way. The next afternoon, I stepped into my home office, closed the door, and called her. She answered on the second ring, cheerful as ever. "Hey Jake. Everything okay?" I cleared my throat. Yeah, everything's fine. I just wanted to talk about something awkward, I guess." "Oh, okay." There was a pause. I could almost hear her smile tighten through the phone. "It's about the wedding," I continued. "Or more specifically, the rehearsal dinner." "Oh," she said again, much softer this time. I took a breath. "Alina, I didn't pay for that." Silence. I know everyone thought I did. "You thanked me, but I didn't offer." Evan sent the bill to our table. I didn't even know it was coming until the waiter dropped it off. She was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, "He told me you wanted to surprise us. That you wanted to do something generous but low-key." "Of course he did. I would never have made that kind of assumption," I said. "Especially not at your wedding." I can't believe this," her voice cracked. "I thank you in front of everyone." "It's okay. Really. I'm not angry at you. But you should be." "Oh my God. I looked like such an idiot." "No, you didn't. You just trusted him." Another long silence. "Why would he do that?" she asked finally. "Why would he lie about that?" I almost laughed. "Because he's Evan." She sighed. "Yeah, I guess I'm starting to understand what that really means." That was the crack in the door I needed. We talked for over an hour. Alina confessed that the months leading up to the wedding had been exhausting. She chalked it up to normal stress, but now, in hindsight, she realized a lot of little things weren't adding up. Expenses ballooned. Vendors mysteriously changed. Her ideas were subtly swapped for better ones. Evan insisted the guests would like more. Every time she questioned something, he made her feel like she was overreacting. He always knows what to say, she muttered. And somehow, I end up feeling like I'm the one being difficult. I didn't say welcome to the club, but I thought it. She asked me outright. Has he always been like this with you? Yeah, I said. But it wasn't always this obvious. It used to be little things. A snide comment here. An exclusion there. Then came the bigger stuff, taking credit for my work, turning our parents against me without ever raising his voice. He's been rewriting the story for years. And no one noticed? I shrugged. People notice what they want to. It's easier to believe Evan is the golden child than to question the narrative. There was a beat of silence. Then her voice dropped, a little hesitant. Do you know anything about this real estate thing he's pitching to your dad? And there it was. The door flung wide open. Yeah, I said. I heard about it. But I don't know the details. She did. Apparently, Evan had been talking about launching a luxury flip business, buying undervalued properties, renovating them, and selling for a profit. All on borrowed money. He had no capital, just a few surface-level contacts and a lot of fast talking. He wanted their parents to invest 50 grand. He'd told Alina it was a guaranteed return and that I was going to handle the tech and marketing side. Which, she added dryly, makes a lot more sense now that I know you weren't even aware of it. I shook my head. He's using my name to lend credibility to a fantasy. Alina sighed. He hasn't even shown me the numbers. Just keeps saying it's going to be big. There was a long pause. Then she said, do you want to stop him? I sat up straighter. Yeah, I do. That's when we started planning. The next few weeks were a blur of quiet coordination. Riley was the first person I pulled in. Naturally. She was suspicious of Alina at first, understandably. But after a long dinner and a few honest conversations, she warmed up to the idea. Alina, for her part, was sharp. She'd started snooping into Evan's files, keeping copies of whatever she found. Emails, proposals, spreadsheets with questionable math. All of it painted a clear picture. Evan was building a house of cards and taping my name to the front door. Meanwhile, I started gathering allies of my own. I reconnected with a few extended family members Evan had alienated over the years. Our cousin Nina, who once loaned Evan money for a car repair and never saw a cent back, and our Uncle Ron, who Evan scammed into buying fake football tickets 5 years ago. I didn't need them to go to war. I just needed them to talk. To start whispering truths into ears that had only heard Evan's version. I even looped in my sister, Casey. She'd always kept her head down like I had. But when she heard the full scope of what Evan was trying to do, using my name, taking our parents' money, and planning to vanish if things went sideways, she snapped. I'm in, she said. Let's light this idiot up. The final piece was Dad. He was a practical man. Old school. Didn't believe in drama or speculation. If I walked in with accusations, he'd shut down immediately. So I didn't give him accusations. I gave him evidence. I printed out everything Alina had found. I showed him screenshots, spreadsheets, even audio clips she secretly recorded of Evan talking about getting Dad to bite. And then I told him, plainly, that I hadn't been involved at all, and that Evan had been lying about me for months. It wasn't anger I saw in Dad's eyes. It was shame. He'd been fooled. He looked at the folder for a long time, then rubbed his jaw and said quietly, You did the right thing, son. That hit harder than I expected. I left that meeting with something I hadn't felt in years, leverage. Now all that was left was the reveal. We didn't want to destroy Evan publicly. Not yet. That wouldn't stick. He was too slick, too practiced. But if we could peel back the mask just enough, in just the right room, the illusion would crack. And once it cracked, it would shatter. And lucky for us, the perfect opportunity was already scheduled. A family dinner. A thank you gathering that Evan and Alina were hosting to celebrate the wedding and discuss the future. All the key players would be there. Our parents, a few aunts and uncles, even Evan's old mentor from college. Evan planned to pitch the real estate fund in full, seal the deal, and walk away with Dad's blessing and his checkbook. He had no idea the table was about to turn. I didn't know exactly what would happen that night, but I knew one thing for sure. For the first time in my life, Evan was going to earn the attention he loved so much. And this time, there'd be no applause at the end. Just silence. And consequences. The dinner was scheduled for a Saturday night, formal but intimate. Evan had called it a celebration of family and the future, which would have been laughable if it weren't so eerily appropriate. For once, the whole crew was coming. Our parents, Aunt Merrill and Uncle Joe, our cousin Nina, and even Mr. Harrington, Evan's old college mentor who now ran a mid-sized investment firm in the city. Riley and I arrived 10 minutes early, just to watch Evan squirm. The venue was a private dining room in one of those upscale steakhouses with mood lighting and pretentious jazz playing in the background. When we walked in, Evan greeted us with that same award-winning smile I'd seen 1,000 times. The one he used for networking events, family holidays, and every time he needed to sell you something with sugar on top. "Jake." "Riley," he said with open arms, like we were all just one big happy family. "Glad you could make it." I shook his hand. His grip was firm, controlled, practiced. "Wouldn't miss it," I said evenly. Riley just smiled and said nothing. He gestured toward the table like a king unveiling a feast. "It's all taken care of tonight. No bills coming your way this time, I promise." There was a subtle jab there, a wink behind the words. I let it pass. There wouldn't be any need for jabs soon. People filtered in, glasses clinked, small talk bubbled. Dad took a seat near the middle, folding his napkin carefully like he always did when he was preparing to listen seriously. Mom was glowing, still high off the post-wedding haze. Mr. Harrington talked loudly about crypto for some reason, and Evan played the host, moving from chair to chair, charming everyone, refilling drinks, sprinkling compliments like confetti. I kept checking the folder in my bag, not because I was worried, it was airtight, but because I couldn't believe we were finally here. By the time the main courses were cleared and the wine had softened everyone's edges, Evan stood up and tapped his glass. "I want to thank you all for being here tonight," he began. "Alina and I are so grateful to have such incredible people in our lives. The wedding was just the beginning. We've been thinking a lot about the future lately, about building something meaningful, not just for ourselves, but for our family." The words, "our family," made me glance at Riley, who rolled her eyes so subtly it was almost invisible. Evan continued, "Which is why I'm excited to share a project I've been quietly developing. Some of you have already heard a little about it, but tonight I want to lay it all out." He pulled out a sleek pitch deck, printed and bound like he was on Shark Tank. He passed copies around like they were sacred texts. His tone shifted into sales mode, polished, persuasive. "The idea is simple. Real estate. We find undervalued properties in emerging markets, renovate them to a high standard, and flip them for significant returns. I've already identified several properties that are ripe for investment, and I've spoken to contractors who are eager to partner with us." He gestured to a slide labeled Projected ROI, 21% per property. "Now here's where it gets exciting. This isn't just my venture. This is a family opportunity. I've already been working with Jake on the digital side. He's building out the site and managing the analytics. And with Dad's financial support to get us started, we'll be able to scale quickly." All eyes turned to me. The room was quiet. Evan smiled. "Jake, you want to say a few words about the tech side?" I stood slowly, taking my time. "Sure," I said. "I'd be happy to." I pulled the folder from my bag and placed it neatly in front of me. I didn't look at Evan. "First of all," I said, "I'm not involved in this venture. At all." Evan never asked me to consult. He never told me he was using my name. The first I heard about this pitch was through a third party. Evan let out a nervous laugh. "Come on, Jake. We talked about this. Don't be modest." "We didn't talk about anything," I said flatly, opening the folder. "What we did do is clean up the mess you left after the wedding, including the bill you sent me without warning, and the lie you told your wife about it." That silenced him. I pulled out a stack of pages, printouts of emails, spreadsheets, and voice recordings Alina had secretly forwarded to me over the past month. These documents show Evan falsifying property valuations, exaggerating returns, and fabricating investor interest. He also listed 2 people as partners who never agreed to join. One of them, I held up the page, is Mr. Harrington. The older man's face turned from wine-flushed to pale. "Wait, what?" "Yeah," I said. "He's named as a strategic advisor in slide 6. Even gave you a fake quote in the testimonials section." Mr. Harrington looked like he might throw his napkin at someone. "You used my name in a pitch deck without consent?" Evan stammered. It was just a placeholder. A placeholder you presented to a room full of potential investors. I asked. Evan turned to our dad. Dad, you know me. You know I wouldn't. I don't know you, Dad said sharply. Not anymore. That silence hit harder than anything I could have said. Mom looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under her. She turned to Evan, blinking rapidly. Did you really lie about Jake paying for the rehearsal dinner? He hesitated. Just long enough. Yes, I said for him. He did. And then he used that lie to build goodwill so he could pitch this scam to all of you. I was just trying to make something happen. Evan snapped, his voice rising now. I'm tired of being stuck. Of pretending everything's okay when I'm drowning in debt and no one helps me. You didn't ask for help, Dad said. You lied. You stole trust. And you used me to do it, I added. Again. Riley put a hand on my back. I hadn't even realized my hands were shaking. Evan looked around the room. No one met his eyes. He tried to appeal to Mom, but she turned away. Then to Alina, his last safe harbor. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she took off her wedding ring and placed it gently on the table. I want a divorce, she said quietly. You could hear the jazz music from the main dining room. That's how silent it got. Evan stood there, stunned, his whole world crumbling in real time. For once, there were no words. No charm. No exit. Just the weight of everything he'd built crashing down around him. The dinner ended early. People left in clusters, stunned into silence or muttering among themselves. Mr. Harrington left without finishing his steak. Nina gave me a tight hug on the way out and whispered, "About time." Riley and I stayed until the last coat was grabbed, the last wine glass cleared. Evan was still sitting at the table, staring at nothing. His pitch deck lay forgotten, pages half-folded, wine-stained and useless. As I walked past him, I paused. I hope one day you figure it out, I said. But you won't be using me to get there. He didn't look up. Outside, the air was cold. Sharp. Cleansing. Riley took my hand. You okay? I nodded. Yeah, I think I finally am. She smiled. Told you. Build your life so good, they choke on it. We walked toward the car, hand in hand, leaving the wreckage behind. That night, I didn't check my phone. I didn't scroll through messages or wait for apologies. I just sat on the couch, held Riley close, and let the silence wash over me. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the background character anymore. I was the one who turned the page.